Today we are going to discuss Shakespeare's sonnets. One by one we are going to complete the 4 sonnets which are included in our syllabus. So this lecture is about a brief introduction to the Shakespearean sonnets. Shakespeare has written a total of 154 sonnets, and before getting into the Shakespearean sonnet in general, I need to speak a few words about sonnet writing. Since you had studied the sonnets in your first year, you have already studied about the sonnets of Astrophel and Stella and Amoretti by Edmund Spenser and Philip Sidney. So you have some background about the sonnet. Already it has been introduced to you that sonnet as a form of literature was invented in Italy during the Renaissance, and Petrarch was one of the most famous practitioners of sonnet. In English, sonnet was introduced by Wyatt and Surrey, and they had published jointly a collection of sonnet that was called the Tottle's Miscellany, and this Tottle's Miscellany introduced the sonnet form in English literature. After getting introduced in English literature, the sonnet for almost 100 years did not get that much popularity in England. So the credit for popularizing sonnet in England should be given to Sir Philip Sidney. Sir Philip Sidney, who was a war hero of England, he composed a sequence of 108 sonnets, popularly known as Astrophel and Stella, and in these sonnets he discussed about the journey of his unrequited love for his beloved Penelope de Verax. He had fallen in love with this woman Penelope, and then unfortunately this woman left him and married another man whose name was Lord Rich, and Sidney was heartbroken. So in order to express his sorrow, in order to express his grief, Sidney had composed the sequence of 108 sonnets, that is Amoretti. After the publication of Amoretti, unfortunately Amoretti was published after the death of Philip Sidney, and once it was published, sonnet writing became a vogue, a craze in England. Almost everybody who was literate was trying their hands in sonnet. But one thing we must note, that these writers were not writing sonnets as materials to be published in the books or in the magazines. They were writing sonnets as a private affair, most probably to circulate among their close circle of friends and win appreciation from the friends. So they did not have the interest in selling these sonnets and earning money. So among these sonnetiers who started writing sonnets, there are a number of them who gained popularity and a huge number who were lost in oblivion. Their sonnets were not up to the mark. So among those who had received certain amount of popularity were Samuel Daniel, Michael Drayton, and perhaps the brightest name will be Edmund Spenser. Edmund Spenser has written a sequence of 88 sonnets under the title Amoretti, dedicated to his beloved, to his wife Elizabeth Boyle, and again Amoretti became a hugely popular sequence of sonnet. After coming to London, Shakespeare also composed sonnets, and his purpose also was not to publish them or to sell them. He also composed it for his personal recreation and the recreation of his friendly group of people. Now, Shakespeare had composed these sonnets dedicated to two distinct individuals. The first group of sonnets, the first set of sonnets, are dedicated to a young man for whom Shakespeare had a deep attraction. Sonnet number 1 to 126. This numbering is very important. Out of the 154 sonnets, sonnet number 1 to 126 was dedicated to a young man who has been addressed as the fair youth or Mr. W.H. Now, Shakespeare had used the term fair youth quite a few times, but Mr. W.H. was used by Thomas Thorpe. Thomas Thorpe actually published the quarto edition of Shakespeare's sonnets in 1609, and he had dedicated this volume to a certain Mr. W.H. Now, who this Mr. W.H. is, this is one of the greatest enigmas of English literature. Till now, we are trying to be certain about the identity of Mr. W.H., but we could not find exactly who Mr. W.H. is. So we are still searching for this person. He can be the very famous William Herbert, or it can be somebody else, but still we are not very sure who is this fair youth or Mr. W.H. William Herbert was the Earl of Pembroke, and he was a man belonging to a very high rank in the society, and Shakespeare had already dedicated two of his long poems, Rape of Lucrece and Venus and Adonais. These are two long narrative poems of Shakespeare. He had dedicated them to William Herbert, the Earl of Pembroke. Then it can also be Henry Wriothesley. Henry Wriothesley was the Earl of Southampton, and the physical feature, the personality of Henry is quite similar to the personality of the fair youth as described by Shakespeare. So it is quite clear from the discussion, from reading the sonnets, that Shakespeare had an attraction for this man. The attraction is towards his personality, towards his body, towards this man in general, and some people find this out as a homosexual attraction. So here rises a very controversial question, that was Shakespeare a homosexual, or he was a bisexual, that he was in love with both a man also and a woman. But one thing, though it cannot be ascertained here by certain, but one thing is for sure, that in those days this was a common practice, that when you are writing a sonnet or a poem on a particular person, the poet usually appeared to be attracted to that person. So it's not that Shakespeare is definitely homosexual because he is describing the physical attributes of this fair youth. He is attracted to the physical attributes of this fair youth. Rather, in general, this kind of description of a person, these kind of detailed sexual description of a person is found in a number of poems belonging to the Elizabethan age. So it's quite common that a poet, whether he is writing about a woman or a man, he used to show to the readers that he is attracted to him. So it cannot be simply stated that yes, Shakespeare was a homosexual, or no, he was not a homosexual. It's not so simple as that. But I just gave one of my arguments in this area, that it's not for guarantee that he was a homosexual. Then the rest of the Shakespearean sonnets, I have told that from 1 to 126 belongs to the fair youth category. The second set, that is 127 to 154, belongs to the black lady set category. That means these sonnets 127 to 154 are dedicated to a woman who is again a big mystery for us. She is often referred to as the dark lady or the black lady of Shakespearean sonnets. Now she is dark for three reasons. First of all, she is dark because Shakespeare describes her complexion as dark. She is not the typical pinkish white European in complexion. She is rather dun or brownish in complexion. So that is one reason why she is the dark lady. Secondly, she is dark because her identity is in darkness. We are not very sure that who this particular lady is, to whom Shakespeare had a deep sexual urge, to whom Shakespeare had a strong bonding with. So we are not sure who is exactly this dark lady, and that is why her identity is in darkness, and so she is called the dark lady of English sonnets. And there is a third reason also for this woman being dark, because of her character. Shakespeare at some point has disclosed in these sonnets that this woman had at once relation with multiple men. So Shakespeare was not just the only lover of this woman, rather it seemed that this woman was a married woman and she had relation with a multiple men. So because this is a dark aspect of her character, so she has often been referred to as the dark lady. So for these primary reasons, she has been referred to as the dark lady. Now sonnet number 144 is very important out of these, because this is one sonnet in which the dark lady and the fair youth themes converge. For only one sonnet in which both these themes converge is the Dark Lady and the Fair Youth. And the last two sonnets, 153 and 154, is also important because though they ideally belong to the Dark Lady set, but they are dedicated to the Cupid. Cupid, you know, is the in the mythology, classical mythology, Cupid has been referred to as the god of love. He has been represented as a little child who has a ribbon tied around his eyes, and he has a bow and arrow. So Shakespeare is dedicating the last two sonnets, addressing the last two sonnets to this Cupid, the god of love. Therefore, these two sonnets belong to the Cupid category as well. Now, what about the identity of the Dark Lady? Just like we are not very sure about the identity of the Fair Youth, we are also not very sure to the identity of the Dark Lady. But one thing is very marked, very clearly expressed. In the Fair Youth sonnet, we see that Shakespeare's love for that young man is platonic. It's not physical, it's not sexual. But in the Dark Lady sonnets, we find that Shakespeare has a deep carnal or sexual urge for this woman. So the relationship with the Dark Lady is not platonic. He is rather having a desire for sexual consummation with this Dark Lady. So basically he is in this Dark Lady setup, he is oscillating like a pendulum between two extreme points. On one hand, he is having the deep urge to make love with this woman, and on the other hand, he is having regret. Why should I be attracted to a woman like this? She is not conventionally beautiful. She is not moral, also in the conventional sense of the term. So he is continuously moving like a pendulum between urge, desire, and regret. And as I told you earlier also, that he has been described as a epitome of he has described this lady as an epitome of lust. The woman has been described as a freely promiscuous woman who is an adulteress. Now the character of the Dark Lady, the scholars historically has been able to identify a few names that can match this character of this Dark Lady. And the most common name is that of Mary Fitton. Mary Fitton was one of the maids of honor of Queen Elizabeth herself, and it is believed that this woman had extramarital affair with William Herbert. William Herbert is the same candidate who is the strongest contender for the title of Fair Youth, who perhaps could have been the Fair Youth of Shakespeare. So this Mary Fitton can be one. Then another character is also quite popular, that is Emilia Lanier. Emilia Lanier was the mistress of Shakespeare's patron, and she was dark in complexion. So these two features can lead us towards the character of Emilia also. And there is also a very strong possibility that this was a character purely from the imagination of Shakespeare. It can be possible that Shakespeare created the Dark Lady out of his mind. She is not a real character. So, as I said, just like the character of the Fair Youth, the identity of the Dark Lady cannot be ascertained for certain. We are not sure who is the Dark Lady and who is the Fair Youth of Shakespearean sonnets. Now, I have told you about the thematic variety and the important aspects of these sonnets. I need to also tell you some things about the organization of these sonnets, the structure of this sonnet, the form of these sonnets. Now, when you have studied the sonnets of Sidney and Spenser, it has been very clearly marked that there is a difference in the structure of these sonnets. Some sonnets belong to the Petrarchan form. The Petrarchan sonnets are divided into the octave and the sestate. The octave is the first stanza of 8 lines, and the sestate is the second stanza, the concluding stanza of 6 lines. And there is a volta at the beginning of the sestate or at the end of the octave. This form was traditionally used by Petrarch, and because a lot of English poets copied this form, incorporated this form in their sonnets, So this sonnet form is popularly known as the Petrarchan form. There is another form which actually originated in England. To some extent, Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, had used this form. After Surrey, this form had been popularized by Shakespeare. So this new form, which originated in England, is called the English form or the Shakespearean form of this sonnet. And this special form, Shakespearean form or the English form, has a feature that it has 3 quatrains. Quatrain means a 4-line stanza. So there are 3 quatrains and then a concluding couplet. So couplet means a 2-line stanza. So there are 3 stanzas of 4 lines each, and then the last stanza is of 2 lines. So basically what the poet is doing is he is laying down the argument in the first 3 stanzas and resolving it in the last stanza of 2 lines. So this is how Shakespeare is making a marked departure from the traditional ways of writing sonnet. While most of the writers were blindly following the Petrarchan form, not just the Petrarchan form but the Petrarchan theme, also the Petrarchan imageries were blindly followed by most of the practitioners of sonnet in England. But Shakespeare made a departure. After all, this is his genius, his ingenuity, his originality is his genius, and therefore he took the sonnet form and then he molded it according to his own requirements. So we see that in Shakespearean sonnet, he has given it altogether a different form, the Shakespearean form, as I said. Secondly, he does not follow the common unrequited love theme. Most of the sonnets are following this typical unrequited love theme, in which there is a lover who falls in love with a woman, the woman ultimately ditches the lover, and the lover in frustration composes the sonnet sequence. No, Shakespeare is not doing this. Petrarch had done that for his beloved Laura. Philip Sidney had done it for his beloved Penelope, but Shakespeare is making a marked departure from this unrequited love theme. Next point that is also very important about Shakespeare's uniqueness as a sonnet writer is that he is not presenting his beloved as a conventional Elizabethan heroine. In most of the Elizabethan sonnets, women are deified. She is presented as a deity, as a goddess who cannot be a human being of flesh and blood. She is beyond all physical desire. She is beyond all comparison. Her cheeks are as red as roses. Her lips are as bright as any beautiful flower. Her eyes are beautiful, as deep as sea, oceans. Her hairs are blonde, bright brown hair. And she looks very beautiful, she is very attractive. Therefore, the lover places the lady at a high altar and worships her with his love. So she is not a woman to be loved. Rather, in normal Elizabethan poetry, we find that women are to be worshipped, not loved. So in a way, the Elizabethan poets had a tendency of deifying women, in which they presented women as goddesses, and the poets, the lovers, were offering their love to these goddesses. But Shakespeare strongly breaks away from this convention. Shakespeare clearly says in his very famous sonnet, about the Dark Lady, Shakespeare clearly says that my beloved's eyes are not as bright as the sun. Her skin color is not as fair as the moon. She is having a brownish color. I have seen roses, but her cheeks are not as beautiful as roses. She is not a goddess, she is a human being, and despite being a human being, I love her. So that was a very strong message that Shakespeare gave through his poetry, that his beloved, despite all her follies, despite all her faults, is beautiful, and he loves her for that, not worships her. So these are some of the aspects of Shakespearean sonnet. If we continue a discussion on Shakespearean sonnet, it can go on for hours. I have chosen only those which will be essential for you to understand the 4 prescribed sonnets in your syllabus. So now in the following videos, we will proceed with the Shakespearean sonnets. Thank you.